The president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, expressed his strong rejection to the violent incidents involving carabineros that occurred in the capital and saw at least 3 journalists injured by firearms. The head of the Russian diplomacy, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, stated that his country does not seek a regime change in Ukraine. He reaffirmed that Moscow's goal is to ensure the safety of the population in the east. Police in Armenia's capital on Monday detained 180 anti-government demonstrators that were blocking streets to protest against Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Hi, this is From the South. I'm your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the Telesur Studios in Havana. We begin with the news. The president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, expressed his strong rejection to the violent incidents involving carabineros that occurred in the capital and saw at least 3 journalists injured by firearms. TV reporter Francisca Sandoval from Señal 3 La Victoria was among the 3 people injured in Santiago during a Labor Day demonstration by unionist groups. A march was called by the Central Unitaria de Trabajadores, and almost at the same time, another demonstration took place in Santiago, which was coordinated by the Central Clasista de Trabajadores. The CUT march went smoothly, but the one by the Central Clasista was strongly repressed by carabineros. Undersecretary of the Interior Manuel Monsalve regretted the violent acts, especially on a date like International Workers' Day, where mobilizations are legitimate and natural. Colombia showed new data on electoral preference amid a campaign marked by violence and false positives. Surveys from database management companies Garumo and Ecoanalitica confirmed the trend of the last 6 measurements. According to national experts, the fieldwork carried out last week gave Gustavo Petro 36.4% of the votes, followed by Federico Gutierrez with 30.6% and Rodolfo Hernández and Sergio Fajardo with 12.4% and 6.9% respectively. In short, if the elections occurred on Monday, the pairing of Gustavo Petro and Francia Marquez would be the winner. More than 2,130 Colombians were polled and asked the question, for which presidential candidate would you vote if the elections were next Sunday? Amid celebrations of the International Workers' Day, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, announced a one-time bonus for retired workers. The head of state apologized and expressed his solidarity with the workers affected by the consequences of the blockade. It was not the only announcement made by the head of state, but certainly it was one of the most celebrated. During the dialogue process between workers, businessmen, and the government attended by the International Labor Organization, the Venezuelan executive acknowledged the situation of the sector affected by the economic war and the illegitimate blockade imposed by Washington against the Bolivarian nation. Retired workers carried out several nationwide mobilizations last week. The Venezuelan president highlighted their courage, their efforts to the benefit of the country, and pledged to continue working to guarantee them a respectable life. The Dominican Republic urged Haiti to do everything in its power to ensure the safe release of one of its diplomats who was kidnapped on Friday. The trade attaché at the Dominican embassy in Port-au-Prince, Carlos Guillen, was seized by gang members while he was traveling to neighboring Dominican Republic. Dominican officials said that the 400 Mawozo gang was behind the kidnapping. The gang is known for kidnapping foreigners and demanding high ransoms. Guillen had been traveling from the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince, by road to Jimani, a city across the border in the Dominican Republic, when contact with him was lost. The Dominican ambassador in Haiti, Farouk Castillo, said his colleague had been kidnapped in the Croix de Bouquet area east of the capital. The president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, announced on Sunday that the country will stop buying fuel abroad and instead will produce it nationally. The head of state made the statement at an event organized at Dos Bocas refinery in the state of Tabasco, where he attended the celebrations of International Workers' Day. The head of state explained the decision aimed at ending crude oil exports in 2023 is part of a strategy by the government to reach self-sufficiency in the domestic fuels market. He also praised the workers for their efforts, recognizing that without them the refinery would not have been able to develop as it has done up to the present. Mexico currently buys the bulk of its fuels and consumes from United States refineries. On May 1st in Cuba, the squares were filled with people to celebrate Labor Day. In Havana's Jose Marti Revolution Square, the celebration was presided over by Army General Raúl Castro and President Miguel Díaz-Canel. Our correspondent Fabiola Lopez tells us more.
After 2 years without marches on May the 1st because of the COVID-19 pandemic, at dawn with splendor, the square of the great events in Cuba. The call had been made by the Cuban president on social media. Let us gather in the square for resistance, for heroism, and the inspiring triumph of collective creativity for the vaccines and for those vaccinated, the president wrote on Twitter. The great parade began with 50,000 science and health workers.
People came, and we can see the response of the Cuban people to demonstrate to the world that Cuba neither surrenders nor can be sold. We will go forward in spite of the difficulties. Our dreams will come. Long live Cuba! Long live the world! Long live the working masses!
I am totally impressed by this celebration. I feel welcomed by Cuba. It is a sense of admiration for a country that has been heavily battered by the United States regime and that has bravely stood up throughout time, and that at this moment it is giving the world the gift of vaccines. We came to demonstrate the support that all the workers of Cuba have for the revolution and the process that we are carrying out. The workers of other sectors must also be supported, as well as those who have made possible the making of the vaccines in order to control the pandemic.
Some doubted, but many were certain, despite the blockade, scarcities and difficulties that burdened their lives, Cubans filled the squares. Observers noted a demonstration of unity and trust in the revolution.
We are still Cubans who love this country and who are patriots, and this square is ours. It will not be sold or left. This square belongs to the real Cubans.
I am 74 years old. I come to defend my revolution on a patriotic principle. Many thought that the square would not be full. No, no, no. On the contrary, we are here, standing tall and present, together with our President Díaz-Canel and Raúl Castro.
No one wanted to miss the opportunity. The new actors of the private sector also took part in the celebration, and together with Cubans, more than 1,058 friends from 60 countries from around the world celebrated International Labor Day.
In my country, going out to protest on May 1st is not a celebration, it is a sacrifice, because the Colombian state attacks and persecutes anyone who speaks out against the government. I see that you have been broadcasting live for a while now. What are you saying to Miami as a radio journalist there? I'm telling Miami, the United States and the world that these images cannot be blocked, that the Cuban people are not forced to come here, that they come with joy, that they come with courage, but also with a tremendous thought for the future, and that they know why they are defending the present. There are millions. These images cannot be blocked. And I hope that Mr. Biden, who has become Donald Trump, will finally understand that the relations between Cuba and the United States are millenary, and that they are necessary for both nations and both peoples.
Everything seems to indicate that unity is definitely the triumph card for Cubans. It was precisely on May 1st in this square that Fidel Castro told the people that revolution was unity and independence, and also to fight for the dreams of justice for Cuba and the world.
Fabiola Lopez, Telesur, La Baja.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. In the Dominican Republic, workers went to the streets to commemorate International Labor Day. The demonstrators marched from early in the morning, ending at the Mauricio Báez Square in the capital city, Santo Domingo. During the day, they demanded the president of the country, Luis Abinader, to respond to their several demands, including the reduction and control of the prices of the family food basket and fuels, as well as the prices of all fuels. Likewise, they demanded a general increase in salaries as well as a decent social security that will allow a change in the system of pension fund administrators and health risk administrators. They demanded a labor code that solves the Dominican workers' health problems as well.
We have get together to commemorate a unitary and combative 1st of May with the determination to continue the efforts to generate a correlation of forces favorable to the mass struggle and achievements in favor of the majority that conform the working people.
Costa Rica appointed the Board of Directors of the Legislative Assembly for the 2022-2026 term. The new board included 5 of the 6 political forces represented in the Congress after the exclusion of the Broad Front. With a total of 50 votes in favor, Congressman Rodrigo Arias of the National Liberation Party assumed the presidency of the Legislative Assembly. For the vice presidency, deputies elected Gloria Navas of the New Republic Party and Melina Hoy of the Social Christian Unity Party was designated as first secretary. The European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, arrived in Panama to carry out a bilateral agenda with the Panamanian government. Coming from Chile, Borrell arrived at Tocumen International Airport and was met by Panamanian Deputy Foreign Minister Marta Gordon and EU Ambassador to Panama Chris Leo Clark Hunart. The head of European diplomacy is expected to meet this Monday with the President of Panama, Laurentino Cortizo, and also with the Foreign Minister, Erika Moines. The National Front for the Defense of Economic and Social Rights warned that the arrival of the European representative is the continuation of the visit of the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The head of the Russian diplomacy, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, stated that his country does not seek a regime change in Ukraine. He reaffirmed that Moscow's goal is to ensure the safety of the population in the east. During an interview with an Italian media outlet, the Russian foreign minister confirmed that they do not want President Volodymyr Zelensky to surrender, but to order a ceasefire, disband the nationalist battalions, and stop the violence against civilians. Lavrov insisted that the key to end the armed conflict lies with Kyiv and not with Moscow. The diplomat recalled the crisis of the Ukrainian people and state began when President Zelensky assured that he would not comply with the Minsk agreements. The head of the Hungarian Prime Minister's office, Gergely Gulyas, said that apart from his country, 9 other European nations have opened accounts in Russian banks in accordance with Moscow's guideline to accept gas payments in rubles. The Hungarian foreign minister said on Friday that several European gas suppliers to Russia have agreed to new payment terms in rubles, but were keeping it quiet and disseminating misleading information about his nation's attitude on the subject. Russian Gazprom said that 4 European gas buyers have already paid for gas deliveries from Russia, complying with the Kremlin's resolution to only accept rubles in exchange for Russian gas. Under the new guideline proposed by Moscow, Gazprom Bank opened special foreign currency and ruble accounts for foreign customers. Buyers will be able then to transfer funds in the currencies specified in their gas contracts. Russia managed to rescue 80 civilians held by Ukrainian nationalists on the grounds of the Azovstal steel plant located in the city of Mariupol. Russian officials said the army and the militia of the Donetsk People's Republic opened a humanitarian corridor and implemented a ceasefire for the safe evacuation of civilians from the site. The officials said that all rescued civilians were taken to the town of Bezimenoye in the Donetsk Republic, where they were given shelter, food, and medical care, whereas those civilians wishing to travel to the Kyiv-controlled territories were handed over to representatives of the United Nations and of the International Committee of the Red Cross. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. Police in Armenia's capital on Monday detained 180 anti-government demonstrators that were blocking streets to protest against Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Protests demanding that Pashinyan step down reignited in Armenia last month after he spoke in the country's parliament about the need to sign a peace agreement with Azerbaijan. Armenia and Azerbaijan have been locked in a decades-old conflict over the separatist region of Nagorno-Karabakh, which is part of Azerbaijan but has been under Armenian control since the early 1990s. In a 6-week war in the fall of 2020, Azerbaijan was able to reclaim control over large swaths of land in and around the region before signing a Russia-brokered truce with Armenia. As both nations edged closer to reaching a proper peace agreement this year, opposition forces in Armenia have resumed protests against Pashinyan. Rallies in the capital, Yerevan, are being held almost daily since April 17th. In France, Jean-Luc Mélenchon's party, La France Insoumise, signed a historic agreement with Europe Ecologie Les Verts ahead of the June legislative elections. The agreement came after weeks of negotiations progressing between the socialist and communist parties. The deal was the culminating moment of this year's May Day, which also saw the parties of the left interact in the Parisian parade in a good-natured atmosphere rarely seen between both organizations, but are now aiming to claim a majority at the National Assembly in June. According to sources close to the negotiations, the agreement notably allocates 100 constituencies to the Greens and their allied environmentalist parties. The negotiations between La France Insoumise and Europe Ecologie Les Verts were the most advanced of the bilateral discussions initiated by the Insoumise with each of the main parties on the left, after Mélenchon scored 22% in the first round of the presidential election. In Raqqa, northern Syria, several members of the Syrian Democratic Forces were killed and some resulted injured amid an attack on their checkpoints. Activists in the area reported the attackers, not yet identified, were armed and carried out the assault with explosive devices and shrapnel that they used against pro-United States militia posts and 2 of their war vehicles deployed in the west and southwest of the city of Raqqa and around the village of Al-Samra north of the city. Thousands of Palestinian worshippers gathered at dawn on Monday to perform Eid al-Fitr prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound after weeks of tensions with Israeli security forces and Jewish settlers. Eid al-Fitr, meaning festival of breaking the fast, falls on the first day of Shawwal in the Islamic calendar and marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, when faithful fast from dawn to dusk. Traditionally, the festival, often referred to as Eid, is a 3-day feast but can be longer or shorter depending on the country. It's a time for friends, family, and giving thanks to God. Strict security measures imposed by Israel amid escalating violence did not stop the worshippers from going to the mosque. Men over 50 and women and children under 12 are regularly allowed into the compound during Ramadan for prayers. On Friday, more than 40 people resulted injured as Israeli forces used stun grenades, tear gas, rubber-coated bullets, and batons against Palestinians. And on that note, worshippers gathered at Bamako's Grand Mosque for the Korité in Mali, also known as the Eid al-Fitr, the festival that marks the end of Ramadan. This year's optimism prevails despite the sanctions imposed by ECOWAS on Mali 4 months ago. Service attendee Bandia Gugeye said even if the embargo had had an impact on the organization of the festival, the government took on all its responsibilities by subsidizing all the basic food items. Many consumers urged the government to take measures to stabilize the prices of basic necessities. Insecurity in certain areas and an embargo imposed by regional bloc are having an impact on the lives of many Malians. The 15-nation bloc is pushing for Mali's military, which seized power in 2020, to stage elections within 12 to 16 months. In the Philippines, 8 persons died, including 6 children, when a fire ripped through a poor community in Quezon City on Monday and destroyed 80 houses. 3 other persons resulted injured in the blaze, which started on the 2nd floor of a house in a crowded informal settlement inside the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Senior fire officer Greg Bichayda said it took nearly 2 hours to extinguish the blaze. He also stated that the victims were trapped inside their homes as the fire spread quickly. Their ages are not yet known, but authorities confirmed 6 were minors. An investigation into the cause was underway. Two people died and several had to be rescued on Saturday after heavy rainfall led to massive floods in Guadeloupe. The Caribbean island is under a red alert for heavy rains and thunderstorms. Rainfall exceeded 300 millimeters, a phenomenon higher than that recorded during Cyclone Maria. The axes of the Point area are flooded and landslides are reported in the Grand Fonds. The rains have also resulted in power outages and difficulties in water distribution. Looking at the situation, the public has been requested not to move in the Point area and not to hike in the mountainous area as well. Travel must remain limited to the rest of Guadeloupe. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at Telstar English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telstar English, I'm Diego Martin. Thanks for watching.